For centuries, their name inspired fear and respect across the Texas frontier and beyond. Masters of the horse, wielders of brutal power, and unmatched tacticians, the Comanche were the undisputed lords of the southern plains. From humble beginnings as foraging underdogs to the architects of an empire, the Comanche left an indelible mark on the history of the American West. Their rise was breathtaking, their way of life brutal, and their legacy unforgettable. Tonight, we unravel the story of the Comanche, a people who turned the vast plains of North America into their dominion, shaping the trajectory of history with their cunning, ambition, and ferocity. The story of the Comanche begins not on the plains, but in the rugged highlands of what is now Wyoming. In the early 1600s, they were an unremarkable branch of the Shoshone people, eking out a hardscrabble existence in the Teton Mountains. They were hunters and gatherers, subsisting on small game and roots, and they lacked the elaborate crafts, religious ceremonies, and hierarchical social structures of their neighbors. Neighboring tribes viewed them with disdain. Short and squat in stature, the Comanche were driven further and further south by their more powerful rivals. By the mid-1600s, they had reached the foothills of the Rockies, still struggling for survival. But then came the horse, a gift from the Spanish that would transform the Comanche from marginalized foragers into one of the most formidable forces in history. The arrival of horses on the southern plains in the late 17th century was nothing short of revolutionary. While most tribes used horses as tools for transport or food, the Comanche made them the cornerstone of their existence. They became virtuosos of horsemanship, learning to ride bareback with an agility and control that defied imagination. By the age of 6, Comanche boys were adept riders, and by adulthood, they were performing feats that seemed impossible to outsiders. Horses did more than improve their mobility, they transformed warfare. Comanche warriors could fight from the saddle with an unparalleled level of precision and speed. They developed innovative tactics, such as circling their enemies in a cyclone of death, firing arrows at astonishing speeds while using their horses as shields. Travelers and settlers described these attacks as terrifying spectacles, a whirlwind of speed, ferocity, and unrelenting precision. No other tribe on the continent fought like the Comanche. While others used horses to reach the battlefield, the Comanche made the horse their battlefield. Their dominance over the southern plains was swift, brutal, and absolute. By the early 18th century, the Comanche had established Comancheria, a vast territory that spanned what is now Texas, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Colorado, and Kansas. It was more than just a collection of hunting grounds. It was an empire. Comancheria thrived on mobility, trade, and violence. The Comanche became the unrivaled masters of the horse trade, amassing herds that numbered in the thousands. They acted as middlemen, supplying horses to other tribes and European settlers alike. This economic power gave them immense influence, allowing them to dictate terms to weaker tribes and colonial powers. But trade was only one pillar of their empire. The Comanche were also relentless warriors. They drove the Apache, Kiowa, and other tribes out of the plains, waging brutal campaigns that left no survivors. Villages were razed, captives were enslaved, and those who resisted faced unimaginable horrors. For the Comanche, the southern plains were theirs alone. At the heart of the Comanche's power was the buffalo. These massive herds were the lifeblood of the plains, providing meat, hides, and even fuel in the form of dried dung. The Comanche's nomadic lifestyle was perfectly suited to follow the herds, and they became expert hunters. Control of the buffalo meant control of the plains. The Comanche's dominance over the herds ensured their survival and solidified their hold on Comancheria. But it was not just about survival, it was about identity. The buffalo was a symbol of freedom, a testament to their mastery of the land and the foundation of their economy. The 19th century brought a new and relentless enemy, American settlers. Drawn by promises of fertile land and new opportunities, waves of pioneers began encroaching on Comancheria. For the Comanche, this was an unforgivable offense. Any incursion into their territory was met with swift and brutal retaliation. The settlers were ill-prepared for the Comanches' ferocity. Used to the wooded hills of Kentucky and Tennessee, they found themselves vulnerable on the open plains. Armed with slow-loading muskets and pistols, they were no match for the Comanches' speed and firepower. Surveyors, in particular, became prime targets, as their work symbolized the settlers' intent to divide and claim Comanche land. The violence escalated throughout the 1840s and 1850s, prompting the formation of the Texas Rangers. These hardened frontiersmen adopted many of the Comanches' tactics, learning to fight fire with fire. Armed with Colt six-shooters, they were able to match the Comanche in open combat for the first time. Among the many tragedies of the frontier, few are as poignant as the story of Cynthia Ann Parker. In 1836, she was just 9 years old when Comanche raiders attacked her family's settlement and took her captive. Raised by the Comanche, she fully assimilated into their culture, eventually marrying a Comanche chief and bearing 3 children, including Quana Parker. Cynthia Ann's life became a symbol of the cultural collision on the frontier. Though she grew to love her Comanche family, her recapture by Texas Rangers in 1860 tore her from the only life she had known. Her tragic story highlights the human cost of the conflict between settlers and the Comanche. Cynthia Ann's son, Quana Parker, would become the last and greatest chief of the Comanche. Born into 2 worlds, Quana was a brilliant warrior and a cunning leader. He led his people in their final years of resistance, waging guerrilla campaigns against settlers and soldiers alike. But Quana's true genius lay in his ability to adapt. As the Comanche faced inevitable defeat, he worked to ensure their survival on reservations, becoming a bridge between his people and the U.S. government. His leadership preserved the Comanche identity in the face of overwhelming odds. The fall of the Comanche was as swift as their rise. By the 1870s, the buffalo herds that sustained them had been nearly exterminated by settlers and commercial hunters. Without the buffalo, the Comanche could no longer sustain their way of life. The U.S. Army's relentless campaigns, combined with the construction of railroads and the advent of new weapons, sealed their fate. Forced onto reservations, the once mighty Comanche Empire crumbled. The Comanche's story is a testament to the power of transformation, resilience, and the brutal realities of survival. From their humble beginnings in the Rockies to their dominance of the Southern Plains, they reshaped the history of North America. Their legacy lives on in the stories of the frontier, the traditions of their descendants, and the enduring image of the untamed spirit of the plains. The Comanche were more than just warriors. They were visionaries who dared to rise, dared to fight, and dared to leave an unforgettable mark on history.